What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Shepherding Souls. So glad to see you. So glad that you're seeing us.
Yeah,
Happy to be here. How's your day?
my day was good. I got to see my dad today. I was productive. Got a lot of things done.
Good.
So,
Good.
how about you? How was your day?
It's alright. I had court, but we talk
Yeah.
about that at a later date. Why I had court, but I had court.
Yeah.
And again, your dad's from Pittsburgh, rocking a Pittsburgh jersey.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to all my Pittsburgh folks. Homewood,
Oh my gosh.
Gateway High School,
Whatever.
the Pittsburgh.
He's such a faker. He don't know nothing about Pittsburgh.
It is what it is, B. I got a special relationship with Pittsburgh. Changed my life for the better. And
it did.
and-
Dang, I forget about that. That's another story.
in 1992, my man Papa Shep was rocking his jersey. So shout out to my pops. But yeah, we want to talk about our story today because we know a lot of y'all are
That's
going
what
to
we're getting
wonder.
into.
We wonder who we are, how we got together, what does it look like, how'd you guys get married? You know, you.
And I always want to know that about people.
Mm.
I always want to know people's love story or just their story in general. So, yeah.
Yeah, so we just jump
Kick us
right
off,
in.
yeah.
Gotcha. Starts in September 2017. I'm 22 years old, doing my Thug Dizzle, Concord University, playing football, being a student athlete. I have been saved for 3 years at this point. 2014, around that
Yeah.
time, 3 years. And every other weekend before the home games, got to get cut on Friday, right? Got to make sure you're straight for the game, okay? So the only barber who was like that could cut my hair in the Bluefield, Princeton area was my man Micah at Fly's Barbershop. Shout out to Fly. Shout out to all my Bluefield, Princeton boys out there if they watching this. And Micah was a believer just like myself, and we developed this really strong relationship as you do with your barber who cuts your hair anyway. And I remember the summer before that, so maybe around that August or July, Micah had invited me to a conference in Atlanta, Pinky Promise conference, right? And then the other one was, what was the other side?
Man cave or something.
Man Cave Pinky Promise conference that was in Atlanta. And I couldn't go because I was too busy training for football and things like that. And I just didn't have, wasn't going to be able to go to something like that for that long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
But come back to around that time in September, Micah starts talking to me about this concert. And the conference. And he brings up this girl that he met named Heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, at this point, like I said, I've been saved for 3 years. And when you saved, there's always a godmom or auntie or a grandma at church who's trying to hook you up with the other Christian girl at church. And it never turned out well for me. Right. So I was like, oh, okay, but what's wrong? I'm like, she's this, she's that. I'm like, yeah, but okay. What's wrong with her, right? Is she weirdo? You know what I mean? Like, what was it?
Why you don't want her? Just kidding.
Well, he was dating at the time, and
Yeah.
shout out to God for that. I don't know. Anyway, but shout out to God for that. But he shows me her Instagram because the way he's portraying this is like they tight. They was at this conference. He knew her. They knew him. Vice versa. It was cool. And he showed me her picture, and he was like, the only catch or the only thing is that she had a child. And didn't matter to me. Thought nothing of it. I'm here right now, obviously. So I didn't think nothing of it because I grew up with half brothers, so it didn't mean anything to me to know that there was, I could potentially taking care of somebody who was not my biological child. Didn't faze me one bit. So moving forward to September 14th, 2017. I know that day because I was coming back from an injury. I missed the first 2 games of the season, and that Thursday night was my first game back, and we went crazy. And I had a great game, and it was amazing. But also that day is great because that was the first time I messaged Heaven.
Mm-hmm.
So put this up, messaged on Instagram. Know this, but let me explain myself before y'all get to judging me.
I was judging you, man.
She was judging me. It's okay. But Micah didn't have her phone number. Micah didn't have he just had an Instagram. So I'm like, okay, well, let me put this detailed message together explaining, first of all, why I know who she is and how I found her page, because that's kind of creepy in itself. And I put a picture of myself in there. So I
Your
wasn't
National
creepy.
Honor Society picture?
Yeah. I was like, in that joint. So I had to put this really detailed message together so I didn't sound like a creep. It was really, I was like, this is creepy. But I did it because I thought she was fine as can be, and she was a believer. That's the start. That's all. Those are 2 qualifications for me. And I said, all right, let's do it. And I sent a message. And what was your response to that?
First of all, I was completely... Okay, well, we'll back up
Yeah.
for myself. I was also, at the time, previous to, what day was that, September
14th.
14th. I had also been saved for about, right around the same time. He was maybe a little bit longer than I was, but I was a single mom, believer, working, taking care of myself and my daughter. I'm also, should I preface, I'm a few years older than Shep, but so I was not to college age, but I was working and taking care of my daughter and serving the Lord, and patiently waiting for whoever the Lord would have for me as far as a husband. And I actually have met someone at the same conference, and he and I just began to date. I don't think that it was a legit courtship at the time. We were just getting to know each other. And I received this message from him, and it was very long and very detailed. And now that I know him, that's very fitting. But right. I was like, who is this man, like this boy, sending me this long message, and then sent me a picture of himself in his National Honor Society.
You didn't know it was National Honor Society at the time.
Bro, I could tell by the Navy's jacket that everybody gets.
First of all, it was a special honor society. It wasn't just a regular honor society. It's Blue Key National Honor Society. I was the president.
He was like that. Okay. So,
know me.
So I was just like, no, I kind of just met this other person, and I don't really entertain 2 people at one time. And plus the whole, I had very high standards at the time, and that's can be a discussion maybe later on in the episode, but I had very high standards, and one of the standards was I did not want to meet somebody on social media. I wanted to meet somebody in person. God has a funny way of telling you what you want, but I just kind of turned him down. I was like, no, I'm kind of talking to somebody I met at that conference, and sorry, Micah, but I did not remember Micah. So the whole story that he shared with me in this message I didn't recall at all. I was just like, Micah Green, I don't know him. What? I met so many people that weekend, so it was hard for me to who did I meet? I don't know what he's talking about. But yeah, I denied him.
Shout out to Michael's boldness.
Yeah.
It's all good, because then his boldness became my boldness, and it all worked out.
It did end up working out, but I denied him. I was like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, so I shot
and the fact that he was 21 at the time, that was also
Deuce.
You're 22? Or you turning 22? No, you were 22.
I was 22.
Okay, yeah. Him being younger than me was also no. So. So yeah, you sent me that message, and I was like,
yeah, she shut me down. So I shot that shot like Steph Curry did in that game in the Olympics. So y'all just seen that. That's the shot I took. It was like bad shot, but I shot it, and I was like, hey, we're gonna see what happens. And I can't remember if you messaged me back that day or another day.
When?
That I can't remember.
When I said I have a question for you.
No, that was later.
Okay,
I'm saying I don't know
if
you responded to my message before the game, or it was the next day when you responded. I can't remember if you.
It was that day. I responded right away.
So I got shut down, and I ended up playing probably one of the best games of my life. I don't know how that worked out, but yeah, from there, a couple time went by, and then my initial feelings was how you DM a girl, if you DM the girl before, or you DM a guy, and hopefully not my man you should be pursuing, but if you are DMing a girl and then she reject you, some dudes get them, well, I ain't like you anyway, that whole, but me, something felt, I'm not going to say what it was, I just felt like I'm not going to be the bitter guy and just be like, oh, I'm just, it's so embarrassed, I'm just going to unfollow her and not, I was like, we'll just be friends, you know what I'm saying? I think I told you that, said,
you're like, if you ever need anything, and I was like, yeah, probably not, but cool.
Yeah, she was so just,
I was not
saved.
like that.
You was Christian saved.
I was real saved.
And I was like, all right, it is what it is. And I followed up, and I continued to just, be a friend on social media. So when she would post things and whatever, I would watch her stories and see her post and maybe like a post. I wasn't commenting it like that crazy, but I think it was one day, probably this is September, probably around beginning of November or right end of October. Aaliyah had did something. She had recorded. She was doing her hair or something, and she said something that was hilarious. And I commented on it, and then after my comment, having then asked, she's like, I have to ask you, or can I ask you a question? And I was like, sure. Little did I know I was about to get a dissertation
And see, I don't remember it that way.
Oh,
Like, you make it seem
bruh.
like I like rattled
You
off
did.
all these questions.
You
and
did.
But that was not the energy I was given on the other side of the phone.
It was.
I was just like, because, mind you, after, like a week after I told him I wasn't interested, the guy that I was at the time talking to like called things off randomly, and immediately I was like, maybe I missed it. Like maybe this guy that reached out to me, like maybe I shouldn't have been so quick to turn him down. But I remember just praying because I didn't want to be thirsty out here just going and doing my own thing. So I was like, I remember driving over a speed bump in this neighborhood. I remember what neighborhood I was in, but I was like, Lord, if this is the person that I'm supposed to talk to, like you can make him come back around because I'm not gonna go chasing him. And that was just where I was at the time. Like I don't know if I would have done things differently if I just would have reached out. Probably not. But I was like, Lord, if this is what it's supposed to be. And then a few weeks went by and you laughed. Dang, just kidding. And you laughed at it, and I was like, I had all these questions, like, who is Micah? Like, what conference are you talking about? Like, I really wanted to know, like, how did you find out about me?
Yeah,
I was just curious. But from you received it as me, like,
no, listen,
like,
no.
Checking you.
Not that. I wasn't concerned about that. But the questions were like after those, but she was asking me like theological questions.
I did?
Yes. It was like,
what did I ask you that was theological?
it was like you asked me.
I wouldn't put it past me, but
you was asking me like it wasn't like Calvin, like with the points of Calvinism type stuff, but she was asking me questions. And it was like I was answering the mugs, and she was like, "Okay, next." And it was like at least a series of 4 to 5 of these questions. And I can't really remember after those conversations when they just stopped. And I was just, I think we kind of just were filling each other out essentially. And I think I was sarcastic. It was like, are we done? Like I think I said,
you're like, is that it?
Is that it? Is there more
questions?
questions? Like, because I was ready at the time, but I mean, I was ready. You know what I mean? I feel like I had all the answers that. I mean, anything she could have asked me, I feel like I could have answered at the time. Arrogantly, but I feel like I could answer anything.
Okay, so moving forward, after we had that conversation, I feel like from that moment we never really stopped talking. Like we kind of just kept messaging each other.
Yeah.
And then we decided one day, like this was like I think maybe a day or two of like talking a lot, and you were like, if you're comfortable with it, like can we talk on the phone?
Yeah.
And I was like, sure. So I called you on my lunch break, and we had like. Did we talk for an hour or was it 30 minutes?
However long
my lunch break was.
That's how long we talked.
At the time, we talked the entire lunch break, and it was just a very easy conversation. And we immediately talked about, like, there was no BS. Like, there was no, like, oh, what's your favorite color? Like, tell me about yourself. We did talk like that, but I feel like we texted a lot. And we had been kind of watching one another.
I don't think I even asked you.
No, like, we immediately were just like, what are your intentions for dating? Because we weren't like official at the time. We both were like married. We both wanted marriage, which was refreshing because at the time, like most men were definitely interested in dating, but they were not interested in
Question
marriage.
about that. So how for those who are in the space of Christian singleness or looking to date or courting, whatever the word they want to use for it, how important is that? How important is it up front to establish what you're here for?
I think that before you even establish that with a person, that needs to be something that you establish with yourself and the Lord and be confident in that. I think that if I was insecure of the fact that I didn't want to be married and I brought that into dating with a guy, like I know I want to be married, but I don't want to scare him off by being married. I made that, like, I know that I'm not just dating. I'm not about to be someone's forever girlfriend. Like, I'm okay with dating, but I do want to be married like that. And I wanted to be dating someone who had marriage in mind. And and it was refreshing that you were not, like, scared off by that. You were kind of met me like, yeah, I want to be married too. Our timelines were very different at the time, but we both knew, like, that we wanted to be married.
It can be, I think, for the one who is tired and exhausted, and you just found somebody that is attracted to you, you vibe with, and you scared to ask those questions. I got to that point where I was just really, at some point I was nervous to put out, like, let me ask the questions. Like, let me ask, are you a believer? This is what I won't do. This is what I will do. This is what I won't be doing if we date. This is what I put those things. You almost got to do it regardless of how your flesh feels. You got to put that stuff out there first, not on no creep stuff, but like if y'all get to the point where you feel like, yeah, y'all both understand there's some kind of vibe and you in that what you call talking phase, whatever you want to call it. I think at some you need to go ahead and put that out there before you get too involved and too emotionally attached to this person to the point where now it's a conflict of interest and it's hard for you to put your standards and the word of God up against your feelings
and
your
I think
flesh
that
and
like
emotions.
not to cut you off, I think not to jump into a different subject, but I think my dating history prior to coming to the Lord, what I had experienced, you know, among Christian men, I was done with games too. So I was just like, I've been there, done that. I don't got time for it.
Yeah.
I can understand if someone doesn't have the same dating history that they may feel like they got some time, but I didn't. I didn't have time for it. So, but it was refreshing that we were able to talk about dating. Able to talk about marriage standards and dating, purity. Like we talked about that our first conversation too. Like we both were like, we're saving sex for marriage. We're staying sexually pure during my dating until marriage. Like we discussed all of that.
We talked about a lot of
We
stuff.
talked about a lot of stuff, which we know that I know that's not normal, like for that to be a first conversation kind of thing, but it was for us. We did lay that kind of out. We were also long distance, and again, like I was not about the foolishness anymore.
Yeah.
So I was just like, this is what I want, and
Yeah.
these are my standards, and that would be another thing I would advise is like purity. You're not being too much because you want to stay pure, and if a brother or a sister don't want to be pure, you're not about to convince them
Right. So
that they need to be pure. That's something that the Holy Spirit needs to do. And you will learn the hard way that if they don't come into that convinced that I need to save I'm saving, my body belongs to the Lord and I'm honoring him in that, it's going to be a fight. I feel like it's going to be a fight to the altar to get there honoring the Lord. It's hard enough.
Yeah, it's a scrap for sure.
Yeah, it's hard enough doing it when two people are convinced of it. So, yeah.
Yeah. So you said you was done playing games.
I was done playing games.
I was playing Monopoly Uno Trouble, sorry.
He was playing a couple games.
Yeah, I was out
at
here
the
still
time.
rolling dice.
Yeah.
For real. But luckily, God had made me mature enough.
Can I say too?
Yeah.
We had that conversation. It was great, but there were still things that we learned about each other after that conversation that was like, oh,
yeah.
that were not as easy. So I
Yeah.
want to say that wasn't like this was not a perfect
Right.
storm.
And after that, I think after that conversation, we did talk a whole heap from that time up until like Thanksgiving weekend, and then like I said, knowing me, I'm probably the one who initiated this idea, but we just decided from like around Thanksgiving to Christmas that we were going to stop talking to each other and pray, and just pray that whole month, take that month apart, and pray that just pray for discernment, pray for wisdom, and
I remember what led us to that.
You also know, you also know, I think, for me, and this could just be my fleshly man side, but like for me, a month would have been long enough for me to know, like if I didn't talk to her for a couple of days and then like I didn't have a desire to want to do that, I wouldn't want to be with you for a lifetime. So like for me, like I was like, this is not, that wasn't the singular reason for it, but that was a part of it. I knew like during this time, what I do, a week goes by, am I cool? Like, am I stressed? Am I like cool? Or let me go try to holler at Shorty over here, or let me go talk to Shorty over there, or like giving other people attention. And it was none of that. Like, I was actually closing cases during that month. I think of people residual. I don't call it residuals. That's kind of rude. But like what I say like is me entertaining other females and never really closing that book, I guess. Whether it be a message or some kind of thing, I'd be like, oh yeah, hey, listen, this is where we at now. This is where I'm at now. This is where I'm at now.
Yeah.
And that was a huge thing for me. Is like I would watch her like when she posted her stories, it was life giving. Like because that was like the only time I could see her and I could see her interact or talk or whatever. And I think it was the same thing. Like
for me, yeah.
Yeah, and that was
I feel like we was low key subtweeting through our.
Oh, facts. We was doing like the little. Oh, I did the little hashtag HB. Yeah, I did do
Put
that.
little initials at the bottom. But I remember why we took the break.
Yeah.
Because why we decided to praise, because we definitely seen two very different things for our future. Like we agreed on everything else, but he was at the time wanting to pursue football. He really wanted to pursue football as a career beyond college. I was in Bible school at the time, and I was like, I really feel like the Lord is calling me into like teaching and things, and I don't see how you traveling and playing ball and me in vocational ministry like is gonna marry well. And they were just think he, and I don't blame, for he was not willing to bend, and neither was I. And I was just like, well, and I think there was also a lot of fear that came with like, well, what does this look like for us to be a family and you playing ball, and like what, there was just a lot of things that I didn't know. And he kind of felt that insecurity in me, and I was again like, I'm not giving up what I feel like the Lord is calling me to do. So that led us to, well, let's pray and like seek the Lord about, are we called to come together and figure this thing out, or do we part ways and go? And so we took the break. Christmas Day was going to be Thanksgiving. Around Thanksgiving time, we decided to take the break, and we were going to give it a month. So Christmas Day was Christmas morning. We were going to talk for the first time.
Yeah, it was cringe. Those videos were super cringy.
The ones you sent to me.
Well, the ones just we could not go back and watch them now. You would hate to watch them. But yeah, we sent. I think I sent her a video like at 11, like 12, or like midnight, and just that during this time that I was. I was convinced. I was like, yeah, I'm ready to pursue a relationship, and I was just excited to talk to her. I think that was like the best, one of the coolest Christmases, because like that we just talked to each other for like
the
that
whole
morning.
Day,
and then I don't remember nothing.
We were like, so when we took a break, we would say like, we'll talk on Christmas, and if it is what we want to do, then you can come visit me for New Year's. And we were gonna meet for the first time in person, New Year's. And so we talked Christmas, and like, we was like still feeling each other, whatever. And so I was like, okay. And at the time during that month, I definitely had my insecurities. I was like, he could be out there talking to other girls. Like there's so much that I don't know about him still. I felt like I knew so much, but there was still a lot of things I did learn that I had to discover. But so we decided we were going to continue talking. I came to here where we live now, like literally the place we live, the city we live now.
Shout out to PG County.
Yeah, so I drove from North Carolina to Maryland to meet him. I stayed with his brother and his sister while I was here visiting him, and it was an amazing trip. Like, it was like no awkwardness at all. At first, we kind of just really hit it off, and I was even more certain that like I'm really feeling him. Like I really do like him, and after I came back home, you were like, I don't want to date. I don't want to ask you to be my girlfriend until I talk to your dad, which was very like old school and honorable of you. You were the only guy ever in my life to like ask my dad to like date me.
Yeah, I mean, I just assumed like.
And this is not something that he's ever done before. Like this is not.
There's not no how to be a player type deal. No, this was just. I think at the time, would I have done that now? To be honest, probably not.
Yeah.
But I didn't know. You know, I just looked
and you didn't know my dad.
I didn't. I just looked at every dad-daughter relationship as the ones that, you know, you anticipate. You know, like, I'm not about to just walk up in, you know, a different city just with in front of her father, would just like, that's the most disrespectful.
I think that's what it was. Like, you didn't want to show up and meet my dad and be like, oh, this is my boyfriend.
Yeah, or just me put my arm around her in front of her pops. Like, that's wild to me.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to kind of establish like, hey,
some respect.
Yeah, and it was cool. I was nervous, but that weekend was awesome. I think we went bowling. That's where I asked him at the bowling alley, like in between frames. Oh no, y'all had walked out, and and then like we were behind. I was like, I gotta ask him, so I just asked him. And yeah, I mean, from the outside looking in, your pops is like, he looks super serious and intimidating. So I was like, man, I'm nervous. I don't know what, but it worked out.
Yeah.
And we started dating right after that. I can't remember when I came.
This is February.
February, right? And it was like right after Aaliyah's birthday, I think.
Yeah. Aaliyah's our oldest daughter. She's 11.
Yeah. So, yeah, and from there we started dating from February.
And we got married that
Well,
December.
I proposed in June. So I mean, again, do we recommend this timetable for everyone?
No, it's not for everybody.
No, but I think where we were in our life and the seasons where we were, I think it worked out for the best.
Yeah.
And during that, you know, that period, I had to make a lot of decisions that weren't easy. You know, I went from, my biggest concern was a test on, you know, a certain day, or who I was guarding that week in a game, or whatever the case may be, to we got to pay for aftercare. You got to find a job. We need a place to stay. I need a job. You're relocating. What, and y'all moving? Like with the wedding, like I had to make a bunch of decisions, and I still had to make the decision whether or not, like this was something we were going to do long term. Like this is something that I truly wanted to do, and it came with a lot of. I think that was the first time in my life where I ever experienced anxiety. I feel like throughout our whole dating process, I might have had like high blood pressure, and
Just from all of the
from the decisions and the spiritual components. And I think that the spiritual warfare that was going on in the in that time for me, having to make so many decisions and being almost alone in making those decisions. Not being in just like a household of churchgoers. I was making a lot of decisions and praying and doing it that way, and it worked out. It did, and I'm glad I went through that season. It's taught me a lot about the inner struggle, how to handle that, how to decipher between lies and truth, how to connect God's word with truth, but how to read this, and even though it says something that that I don't feel is still true,
right.
And I think in that season that was something that I had to learn, I had to do, and I knew every time I got around heaven, my heart rate would drop. Seriously, this is not even like cliche or like trying to even be like a Hallmark movie, but like my heart rate would drop, and I would be calm, and I wouldn't have as much anxiety and things around it. But as soon as I would go back 6 hours from her, it would be the same thing.
It was like definitely some spiritual warfare going on. And because you were making decisions not just about your future, like you were making the decision on whether you were going to play ball or do something else. That was a big decision.
And I would have to be a dad too.
Yes, and then there was a lot of new changes that I was already accustomed to because I was out in the world, like doing things and living. And
I never had a paycheck.
Yeah, so there was just a lot. Our lives looked very different, and then coming together was not the easiest thing, but it definitely worked. And so we got married in that December. We moved here. Aaliyah and I moved to Maryland in October, and we got married December 15th. 2018. In 2018, so we are coming up on our 6th year anniversary here in a few months.
6 years.
So we're still new at this. We've learned a lot, but we know we got a lot more to learn. I was gonna say that the timeline, when you're talking about the timeline of us like becoming official, engaged, and married, I think us being long distance served us. It was not something that probably, or at least for me, I was not looking for something long distance. I thought that I would have preferred to be like in the same place, the same time as the man that I was dating, but it served us.
Yes.
And I think that while that timeline, it was less than a year from the time we became official in February and married in December. But because we were long distance, it really forced us to talk a lot. Yeah. Like we talked so much. We talked through a lot of hard things, and I wonder, had we been face to face, if we would have found
No, we would have been too busy trying not to lick each other.
Yeah. True. Yeah, like that we would have struggled with some other things versus that. So even that
we wouldn't even talk. We would have been so surface level.
Yes.
I feel like we would have just been like.
And it forced us to really like dig deeper into this. We asked a lot of hard questions. We talked about a lot of hard things, and so that timeline seemed so perfect for us. I don't think that it would have served us to go any longer than that. Like, especially purity wise, like it would have gotten harder and harder every time we seen each other just to kind of withstand that. So I love the timeline that we had. So we have some questions we want to talk about, like. So we did get married in December, and I don't want to. I mean, I know today's podcast is not about like marriage per se, but what were you looking for in a girlfriend, potential spouse at 19, or not at 19, but at 22?
Yeah, I think for me, and again, this is, if you know me, you know that this is like who I am. But I felt like I was always more mature than the person I was with, like I was entertaining. And
I would agree.
I wanted someone who was older and more mature than me. And that doesn't always equate, but I wanted someone who I could have conversations with about anything. That's how you get to me. That's how I'm connected. That's how, like, if we can't talk, then you can be as fine as can be. It don't matter. We can't talk. So I was looking for that. I was looking for like somebody that could be my best friend. We could talk, we could laugh, we could joke. I was looking for someone who loved Jesus genuinely. Most of the time, again, during that time, I was, meeting people were introducing me to Christian women or things like that, but I was always the more spiritual person, more Bible reading person, more that took the Bible serious, walked this like took these things serious. So I was looking for somebody who loved Jesus and I could see the fruit from it, and I was looking for someone who was fine that I wanted to look at.
Yeah.
Like I want to look at you, and I want to just be like, well, Lord, anoint me, or Lord, change my, like my eyes to get used to this. No, I wasn't on that.
That is wrong.
I was on that, and I felt like you met. And also something that was important to me was I wanted someone who was qualified enough to, like, I wasn't going to, I know I'm called to lead our home, but I wanted someone who could compliment me in that.
Yeah.
Whereas if I was not home, the Bible and Jesus didn't just disappear.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Somebody who would keep the same standards at home that I kept. And that's where I think those intentional conversations and you've met and exceeded those expectations.
Okay,
also.
so with those being your expectations, how was your dating life prior to me? I know these answers. I just want y'all to know.
Yeah, my dating life prior, I mean, it was like half and halfway. It was like I never was the Christian who had that like enjoy your singleness season and all of the stuff and this and that.
Serve the Lord. No
ties. I was on Instagram and I was in college and I was getting DMs and I was DMing and I was going to parties and I was doing the things and I was doing all the stuff and I was trying to be saved and sanctified in the process, and it never really worked out because we know you can't have one foot in, one foot out. So basically
you were still sleeping around a little bit?
Facts. I definitely was. I mean, yes. The weekend I met Heaven, the weekend I messaged Heaven, the next day was my last encounter with a female.
And y'all, I didn't learn about this till I was already like
dating me.
And it just broke my heart a little bit when I found out. I was like, oh, so you messaged me and then you went and like...
Because she told me no. And not that if she would have told me, yeah, we were talking, I probably would have thought twice about it. But
I don't know about that.
But she told me no. I was like, all right, I just had the best game of my life. We went out that night. Again, this is not things I condone.
Giving me play.
It's just not things I condone. But I'm just saying, I'm not, and this is not something I'm celebrating. But I'm just saying that, that was where I was at the time. I was still wrestling with that.
Surrendering that
side of my life and wanting to, I always wanted to have somebody, I guess, talking. I wanted to talk to people. I wanted to have, whatever the case may be. And so if I didn't have social media, maybe it wouldn't have been that way. But I did have social media, and I was in college and I made those decisions. So I was
and the girls liked you. He's got some charisma. He's not hard to like.
No, say the right word. I got Riz.
You got Riz.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
So he's the girl. Like he's not hard.
But
to
I knew
like,
that,
so.
and that's the thing. I knew that, and I would use that sinfully to manipulate. Like I would use my charm in ways that, even in the Christian space, in ways that I shouldn't have.
Yeah.
That would help me get in. It was just not. Again, like I said, these are things that. Not proud of, or things that I would change.
So what dating me? What changed that about you? Like why did you stop being that way? Because like you ain't never tried to
I just felt
me like
that, and that's how I knew it was different because I didn't have the desire to do that anymore, and I didn't have backup plans, and I wasn't entertaining. I wasn't entertaining anyone else in that way. Like I wasn't interested, or I wasn't DMing, or nobody was DMing me. I wasn't like flirting. Flirting.
He's like flirting.
Yeah. I wasn't flirting with nobody or like entertaining females in that kind of way. I just was. I generally remember having a couple of conversations.
Did me taking my faith seriously impact that at all? Like if I was a little lukewarm, do you think that it would have been or?
No, okay. Well, if that was the case, I would have moved on.
Right.
But
eventually, yeah.
Yeah, but because and I don't think it had anything. I just know how I felt. Okay. Like I knew that when you have that feeling of like, oh dang, this might be legit.
Yeah.
Like I've never I was like, yo, you gotta go. Like this is I found somebody I really like.
Right.
And it wasn't no like I had girlfriends, but it was just people you were talking to consistently, and I didn't want to just in that and be like. Whatever.
If you could go back and change your dating life prior to knowing what you know now, what would your advice be to a guy who feels like I know I love the Lord, I know I want a godly woman, but I'm also struggling with I'm struggling with women.
Right, for sure. I would, one, get yourself around some godly brothers who love Jesus equally as you do. So that means find a church home, get plugged into the men's group, preferably. Hang around older married man.
Yeah, older man.
Even if that means somebody who has like kids your age or close to it, doesn't matter. Get around that. See what it looks like to be a good husband, a good father, see what that looks like, and with the qualifications where pick their brains, ask questions, read your word and know your word, be ready for when your wife comes to lead your family and to lead her. I would say, again, social media can be dangerous. If you are going to be on social media, make it your voice. Like, make it sports, whatever you like, sport, whatever your topics is, whatever thing you are, and limit the exposure to the females. If you gotta, you on the whole like etiquette social media thing. Social media has gotten so good now where you can follow a female and you can mute her posts and her stories. So it's just like she follows you and you don't follow her.
Yeah.
Because,
and this is not to say that it's a woman's
no,
fault, but yes,
no,
but
I'm not. But where I'm getting
yeah,
at, I'm saying if you're sexually active like I was, and you were struggling with that was your trigger, was
seeing fine females online,
and then not saying like they caused you to stumble, but because of that, you're like, dang, I got to DM her, right? Like, type, and if that's you, like I was, and the environments and things you struggle in, you gotta cut, as Jesus tells us, if your left hand calls you to sin, gotta cut that mug off. So for me, I would say, if that's you, limit that. Like, again, like more of your homies on your Instagram and your Snapchat and all that, and not just girl heavy, dominant heavy, right? Limit the spaces where you can have those interactions that make you feel that way. We all know, like, you have them nights where you just like, I'm about whatever, like I'm going out, certain music you listening to just make you feel like, you get Friday night, you feeling good, like what we doing, what's the move, and you go to a party and you tell yourself, well, I'm not gonna do any sinning, I'm not gonna do this, I'm not gonna do that, and you fooling yourself. You fooling yourself. So I would say those are some things that you can do, and pray for your development and for your future spouse. That's what I'll say.
You got any questions for me?
Yeah, I would ask, what, dating me, I guess, what were some of the things, like, what was your one thing that you noticed about me? I would say that was a little shocking, and then what's something that you noticed about yourself as a process of dating me?
I think that what shocked me about you?
Yeah, like,
I think that I was very surprised at your commitment to God's word, like, because I'm not gonna go back and answer the questions that I answered or asked you, but he was dating, but I was very much not dating. I was very like, I'm not just out here just going on dates. Like, I need a man to come to me correct, and I was single for a little while because of that, but I truly feel, and honestly, I think that the Lord kept me hidden in a way because I didn't have like brothers coming at me like left and right, like it was when I was in the world. Yeah. But I think God just kept me hidden for the right one. But I had very high standards on who I was going to even let into my space. I wasn't texting guys. My social media was just was very clean. There were just certain standards. But again, you came from being younger than me, but also having a different history than me. I had some pretty challenging relationships prior to coming to the Lord that I just knew what I wasn't going to deal with anymore. So it made me approach dating as a believer very differently than you, which I may have judged you for in the beginning, but now I completely understand why they look differently. So I was really surprised at just like, wow, I want a man who loves Jesus just a little bit more than me and is committed to reading his word. And I think that was like, oh wow, that was one of the first things like that I liked about you. And something that surprised me, that was surprising about like, I guess, dating you.
Yeah, something that you learned about yourself that you didn't know.
Oh, well, I would say one, like, I didn't struggle with purity until I started dating you. Don't smile about that.
No.
Like, I really just felt like, I was not a believer always. I came to Christ with a child, so clearly, like, I had been there and done that. But I just was like, I didn't struggle with sexual purity at all. Like, it was not a thought in my mind, and again, that probably comes from trauma. But when I met you, I was just like, I want this man. And I had to really lean on the Lord, and that really, I know that's probably not the typical response, but that I learned that about myself. I was like, heaven, here you are, all high and mighty, but look at you now, taking cold showers. But I learned that. I did learn that was surprising about myself. I'm pretty sure there's other things that I learned. Yeah.
But I was just saying total, man, like, don't get caught up in stories of other people. Our story is our story.
What would you do different about what if we could go back and change like the way we did our dating process? Is there anything that you would change?
Man, nah. To be honest, I mean, yeah, I guess on my end, I would be not as direct and stern.
Oh, with me?
Just like I was a bit of I didn't have much room for stuff. You know what I mean? Like,
you like Grace? You're pretty critical.
that's the word. Yeah, and I would probably, but I just know I would have known that because I didn't know you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I didn't know that about myself at the time. So I don't think I would change anything. I'm happy the way the things they turned out because it has made us who we are now, and we've learned so much from that time. I think we're completely different human beings than we were.
Yeah. I wish that
ago,
like
7 years ago.
I don't necessarily think I would change anything about the way we dated, but I do wish that like we had a solid group of people that like we included in our dating.
Yeah, we did it though.
We could have, because it just happened to be like I was walking away from the church that I was a part of. I was in a bit of, that was like my deconstruction era, and I was like relearning a lot of things about the Lord and what I actually believed and what the Bible said. You were in college, so you kind of had a church you were going to there, and then a church you will visit when you came back home, which kind of left us feeling a little homeless, kind of when it came to like people who were walking with us during that time. We really could have benefited from like having otherwise married couples just to chaperone, to like just be
everything,
all of those things. So I would say I do recommend that. Like, it's obviously very different than the world, and I think you should be very careful about who you allow and to speak into who you should marry and your future spouse, because a lot of people out here prophesying that ain't your spouse and vice versa, and they're not really hearing from the Lord. But people that you trust that can pray over your relationship, stick to biblical advice and not personal opinions, and that you can walk with and hold you accountable. I think that goes a long way in Christian dating, which is meant to look very different than the world. We cannot take worldly advice into Christian dating. So I would say that would be one thing that I wish I could change. But
and just to wrap up, y'all,
talking a lot.
I would say just focus on Jesus. I know I wish stay away from the temptation to date those who don't love the Lord, and focus on His Word. Focus on throw yourself into serving the church, those around you, your family, friends, and know that it's coming. If that is God's will for your life, it'll take place. He's your Father. He knows what you want, and He knows what you need. Those are two great places to be. You know, and trust and rely on that. And I wish I would have done that a little bit more, because I caused myself a lot of trauma and hurt and things that I brought into my marriage because I wanted to be out here fishing instead of, just sitting on the boat and waiting for Jesus to fry me up one on the beach. You feel me? And that's what I should have done. And I want you guys to go into your marriage with less baggage than I did and less trauma than I did. I want to encourage you to keep going. If you're tired, keep going.
We're talking to singles now.
Yeah, if you're tired, keep going. If you're dating now, and your person that you're dating is showing you some colors that the little red flags, get out of there. Saving yourself some time and some effort later in life. So, wherever you are, stay encouraged. Be faithful to God's word. Lean on God's word. Walk with Jesus, and you'll be good.
Yeah, it's easier said than done at times, because
Facts.
Loneliness is a real thing. Oof. Desires are real. And we don't want to minimize that by like, just pray and believe in Jesus.
Yeah.
But clinging to Him and who His character is and who He has always been to you, knowing that He's faithful and that you're complete in Him, and He knows what's good for you. Like you said, He's a good Father. And yeah.
All right, y'all.
Yeah.
Good talking to y'all. Have a good week. Whatever y'all doing, stay faithful. Follow the shepherd.
Follow the shepherd.